Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Beyond Baroque Literary Arts Center, I wanted to thank you all for joining us tonight for a reading and conversation with Obed Silva and Sara Borjas. My name is Ivan Salinas, and I'm the Poetry Coalition Fellow in Programs and Communication at Beyond Baroque. Before we get started with the readings, I'd like to mention a few things about Beyond Baroque. First, I'd like to acknowledge Beyond Baroque's presence on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Gabrielino Tongva peoples. We acknowledge the wrong done to these peoples through settler colonialism, genocidal practices, and the violent dispossession of their land. As a literary arts organization, we're committed to uplifting Indigenous communities, their stories, and cultures. As many of you know, Beyond Baroque is a literary arts space in Venice, California, and we are dedicated to the artistic possibilities of language, to cultivating new writing, presenting contemporary literature and art, and building a diverse literary community. We've got ongoing free online workshops every Monday in fiction and every Wednesday in poetry, which you can find by visiting our website. And we'll also be posting links to those in the chat. We're offering various intensive workshops. On March 5th, you can join poet Douglas Manuel for an online poetry workshop focused on close poetic forms from all over the world, centered around minoritized and marginalized voices. We also have a couple of upcoming programs as well. On February 26th, we'll be at the second Culver City Book Festival from 11 to 4:30 p.m. at the Wendy Museum of the Cold War. And that's happening on Saturday, February 26th. We'll be co-hosting a couple of workshops, one in collaboration with the Tiny Tech Zines Collective for an introductory zine making workshop, as well as a generative poetry workshop led by River Resto. This event is free and open to the public, and you don't need to register in advance. And on February 27th, you can join us virtually at 4 p.m. for a night of love, a reading in honor of Black feminist scholar, poet, and critic Bell Hooks, as she recently passed away in December. There will be poetry readings by Derek Weston Brown, Pat Payne, Sean Lub Cannon, and many more authors carrying on the legacy of Bell Hooks' ideas and writings. So please be on the lookout for those events happening this weekend. Also, be on the lookout for our announcement of our official reopening happening on the weekend of March 18th. We're very excited to be back in person at our physical space in Venice and open to the public. So please be on the lookout for that announcement really soon on our social media. The pandemic continues to have real effects on arts nonprofits' finances, and I'd very much appreciate it if you could make any donation as part of the evening. You'll find a link in the chat or on our website. But even more so, support our writers tonight by buying their books. We'll have a link for those in the chat as well. So now on to our program. Thank you to Jimmy Vega, who is running things behind the scenes. And of course, thank you so much to both of our authors tonight celebrating the debut of Obed Silva's The Death of My Father, the Pope, a memoir. And it is a powerful memoir that confronts the disheartening family history, a father and son relationship, as well as family love and traits of toxic masculinity embedded in culture and everyday life. We're very much looking forward to the conversation between Obed and Sara. So first, let's begin with a poetry reading by our host and conversation partner, Sara Borjas. Before I do that, I'd like to read Obed Silva's bio so you can know a little bit more about him. Obed Silva was born in Chihuahua, Mexico, and immigrated to the United States as a toddler. After years in the gang lifestyle, which left him paralyzed from the waist down, the result of a gunshot wound, he discovered the power of book learning, earned a master's degree in medieval literature, and is now a respected English professor at East Los Angeles College. The Death of My Father, the Pope is his first book. So now I'd like to introduce our host of the night and also conversation moderator. Sara Borjas is a Chicanx pocha and a Fresno poet. Her debut collection of poetry, Heart Like a Window, Mouth Like a Cliff, was published by Noemi Press in 2019 and received a 2020 American Book Award. Sara was named one of Poets and Writers 2019 debut poets and is a 2017 Canto Mundo Fellow. She is the recipient of the 2015 Blue Mesa Poetry Prize, judged by Carmen Jimenez Smith, and a Postgraduate Writers Conference Fellow, a Community of Writers at a Squaw Fellow, and a McDowell Colony Fellow. Her work can be found in Plowshares, The Rumpus, Poem a Day by the Academy of American Poets, and The Offing, amongst others. She teaches in the Creative Writing Department at UC Riverside and the UCR Palm Desert Low Residency MFA program, but stays rooted in Fresno. You can find her at Sara Borjas on Instagram and at saraborjas.com on our website. So now, please let's give a warm welcome to our host, Sara Borjas.
Thank you, Yvonne. Yeah, this is like perfect pairing, which I hope will become apparent as they begin to chop it up after we share our work a bit. So thank you all for coming. It's really, Obed told me like years ago, not years ago, but a couple years ago, this book was happening. So it's such a trip now to like have it, to hold it. And me and Obed talked earlier, but just to kind of re-see like myself and the world through reading this memoir. In a pretty piercing way. So I'm excited to chop it up, Obed. And I'll read some poems to kick it off. So this first poem is after David St. John, who's a Fresno poet, called I Know the Name of the Desert. There is a desert inside my mother's iris, a flesh-colored truck rambling through miles of packed dirt, where my grandmother is leaving my grandfather, driving away with all his kids. Dirt rises and fails along a road in El Paso. Sand freckles underneath tires. 8 small hands ring like rags. My grandma reaches across the cab over 3 of her daughters to slap my mother across her face. She calls her tortilla quemada, cara de mierda, because she has my grandfather's big teeth, wide canyon mouth, cheeks like hot, empty plains. My mother would rather cut off her hands than hit me. She would rather swallow box Chardonnay, open her throat like a rusty silo for rain, light a candle for a girl she knows, and turn this evening into a watermelon sliced, a rest stop where she is allowed to play. In her iris, there is a desert. There is a girl who does not cry, a woman who wonders what she did wrong. I'm a daughter who walks through a desert, carrying my mother's wounds, each open palm across her child's face, each time a man offered her something he did not have. I trudge a lineage of exiled desire, thirsty. I love my mother by drinking her cheap wine with her. I bend down in the sand, lap my own sinking steps. So there's like a series of Narcissus poems in my book. This is one of them. It's called Narcissus Contemplates Ordering Another Drink at the Bar. I wear headphones at the bar and feel fine. I'm not the one twisting the cap. In Fresno, my grandfather is dying from his overworked liver. A machine plucks the mess from his blood, his arm like a stream of nights where my father, then a boy, opened his beers. And my mother is drinking a box of Chardonnay, listening to the same lyrics in the backyard, Frampton singing, no one to relate to except the sea. We don't need water to drown. The bartender senses these types of things. At Al-Anon, they say, don't say alcoholic. Say, I have a problem with someone else's drinking. I count what my mother does for herself, measures her drinking water in her Starbucks cup, watches family comedies full of white people living in two-story homes, eats a See's candy she stashes in a cracked leather ottoman for each tax season, where my father refused to buy her that Lexus, or finally take her on their honeymoon. My father counts the seconds between his father's final wet breaths, a gurgling that rises from the bottom of machista, chicanismo, lineage of anchors. I have a dream where I'm a river, my mother's hands rumpled on the floor like petals in a light, pleasant, never-ending wind. The wind flows like liquid out of my mouth, each excuse I make when I drink. Measure, I say, is just a way of justifying what we want. I tell myself 3 drinks. I shame my mother for her box Chardonnay, so I don't have to admit what bothers me most is her loneliness and how well my father, like this bartender, overpours it. And I'll read 2 more poems. This one is called Lies I Tell. No, that's all I'll say. I'll say it's true. I'll just say it's true. I have never eaten a peach. You'll see why. Lies I Tell. A woman has a window in her face. That is the truth. I look like my mother. That is the truth. I want to tell you I'm not like her. That is the truth. I'm ashamed walking in a woman's body. That is the truth. I wish to take back everything I say. That is the truth. A window can be a mirror. It can also be a door. That is the truth. As a girl, my mother slept in a shack with no windows and 1 door. That is the truth. My grandma would slam windows. Truth. A mother's hands are stronger than God. Truth. We often use fruit to describe a bruise, like plum or blackberry. Truth. My mother's window, blackberried. Truth. My mother's door, peached. Truth. She loves peaches. That is the truth. My father could not stand them in our house. That is the truth. We had 3 doors and 9 windows in our house. That is the truth. A woman has a face in her window. Truth. My father has a window, but I don't know where it is. Truth. What burrows is the peach fuzz, he said. That is the truth. I have never been close enough to a peach to eat one. Truth. The worst things last on the skin. Truth. I don't like not having things. Truth. Not all windows open. That is the truth. One night, I see my father crying in the yard, head in his hands. That is the truth. I make things up that I want for myself. That is the truth. And I feel like this is a perfect time to segue and to hear from our feature of the night. reading tonight from his debut memoir, The Death of My Father, the Pope. Y'all please welcome Obed Silva.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for that. It was fantastic, beautiful. Those images in your poetry, man, they're just so vivid and they just hit hard. That the cara de tortilla quemada, Jesus Christ, that's powerful and painful at the same time. I mean, being called that, man. Thank you for those opening poems, Sarah, and thank you for being here with us, and love you deeply and appreciate you much. Absolutely. Thank you to the audience for showing up, to my students that are here. Thank you for being here. I canceled class for this, so hope you guys do the extra credit for tonight. I'm going to start off reading the piece. I usually start off by reading the introductory pages, well, not the introductory pages, but like the first few pages of the memoir itself. But I'm going to skip that a little bit. Just preface it by saying that my memoir really is about my father and the tumultuous relationship that my father had towards the end of his life. He was an alcoholic and he died at age 48 from his alcoholism. He had cirrhosis of the liver and just gave up on him and he died. So the book really is about me going to his funeral. So that's the thread that holds the entire book together. And upon attending his wake and upon attending the funeral, I go into flashbacks, remembering my father the way I did as a child and also as an adult, and the hardships that he put us through as a family because of his alcoholism. So I want to read from where I'm already in Chihuahua, and I'm at the funeral parlor, and I go up to the casket to view my father in his last and eternal state. Okay, so here we go. The closer I get to the casket, the more difficult it becomes for me to keep pushing. Oh, and I say pushing because for those of you that don't know, I'm in a wheelchair. I'm paralyzed from the waist down. So it's not a typo or anything like that. I just can't walk. That's why I don't say I keep walking. Okay, so I keep pushing. The closer I get to the casket, the more difficult it becomes for me to keep pushing. My arms become heavy and my heart begins to race. What the fuck? Go, he's right there. But I can't. I can't make it all the way to the coffin. I stop about 3 feet short from the damn thing and turn my back to it. What the fuck are you all staring at? I say beneath my breath to all the sour eyes hovering at the door. I hate that they're still there doing nothing more than gawking my way as if I were about to do something miraculous, like bring the dead man back to life. Run along now, you scoundrels. There's nothing to see here, and miracles are for suckers. I turn back toward the casket, and this time I catch a glimpse of my father's shiny nose and forehead. I can't hold back any longer. I have to see all of it, the complete silence of the storm. Bracing myself for the inevitable, I push forward with the frail fortitude of a condemned man. I become steel in one breath and the dried up petals of a daisy in another. The lifeless presence of the man I'd loved unconditionally as a child and had come to hate as a man is stirring in me a whirl of emotions I can't control. So much is dead here, 48 years of memories. The man in front of me had been my father, and the reality that he was now dead, which I'd been suppressing since the moment I first learned of his passing, is finally coming into being. The death was real. The masses had been telling the truth all along. My father was a corpse. He was dead. A flush of warmth rushes through me, and I feel a wave of tears wanting to break through the windows of my eyes. It's as though they'd been checked at the depths of my entrails and are now trying to make a break for it, and there's nothing I can do to stop them. Fuck, Pops. Why do you have to go and die for? What about the fish and all the sodas? Didn't you care anymore? I pinch my nose at the tip and wipe the tears away. I have to stop them. I can't give in. I can't let anybody else see the madness, the hell, what love can become. And just like that, I do. I seal the dam and stop the torrent. It's a new day. It's a new day. Remember the monster. Remember the fury. I bring my head up, shake off the fear, move closer to the coffin, stretch my neck out and glance at the corpse inside. There, stretched out in front of me, is a lovely and solemn image of silence. I take a deep breath and let out a long sigh. A smile comes over my face. So this is what you look like dead, eh, Pops? I say to the body in the box as I place my hands over the plexiglass. You look good, better than I thought you would. But my father doesn't look good. I'm lying. Unlike the dead Ivan Ilyich's more pleasing countenance, of which Tolstoy writes, as with all dead men, his face was more handsome, and most importantly, more significant than it had been on the living man. My father's face is a gross sight, terribly the same as the one he'd been lugging around long before his death. Aside from it now being bloodless and petrified, benumbed of life, the living man and the dead man shared the same sickly face, a face that had aged too fast, a face that had already begun to rot while its cheeks still blushed. It was a century-old face, deeply brutalized through the years, trashed and corrupted, a scar for every battle and a wrinkle for every tormenting minute that had marked his life carries the tune, the shrills and grunts to its muted swan song. The crooked smile beneath the smashed and crooked nose that even in death reveals the 1-inch gap where teeth 8 and 9 once were. For those that don't know, these are teeth 8 and 9. They're top 2 front teeth. I learned that from a dentist once. Just an aside, pay me no mind. 8 and 9 once were, is now testament to the unfavorable reality my father had put his face through. What is left of the hair on the head, like the mustache on the face, is mostly gray and sparse. He stopped dyeing them both. He'd stopped reviving those features that had once helped produce a handsome man, and he'd settled with the degenerative jokes they'd become. The little bit of gray hair, the smashed nose and crooked smile, the missing teeth, the scars and wrinkles, fuck them all, my father must have thought with delirium. What do I care for vanity when the high is much more wonderful? Fuck them all, indeed. So that's my initial introduction to my dead father. And that's the initial reaction that I have at seeing him in that casket for the first time. Now I'm going to read a passage of where I describe his wife. Well, I don't really describe her, but I describe what she does every day that my father's birthday comes around, and that's on December 1st. And just like my father, his wife Kokis is an alcoholic. She continues to drink, and this gives us a little bit of insight into what their relationship was like when he was still living. So this is after my father's been buried and time has passed by. Every December 1st, she awakes at dawn. Before the cock crows 3, she's well on her way. In the same clothes she slept in, she rises from her bundle of blankets and makes her way through her dark and cold home to the bathroom sink, where she washes her hands and splashes cold water on her face. Cold, everything's cold, but nothing's more than her heart. Love moves her, death moves her. There's a memory in her mind that she can't shake. Her bare toes and fingertips are nearly freezing. Already she's beginning to cry, but her children and grandchildren are still asleep. So she represses the sorrow stirring inside and wipes away her tears. Everything is slow, even the way she looks at herself in the mirror. She could stay there a lifetime and wonder if she'd ever been happy. She knows something in her eyes has died, and that what has been set to time cannot be left for tomorrow. Her double layered socks, her shoes, her 2 sweaters, and jacket help only a little. So she crosses her arms, rubs herself, and then blows hot breath into her cupped hands. After she grabs her hand-stitched satchel and walks over to the refrigerator, opens it, reaches for the 2 caguamas she stored there the night before, and carefully places them inside her bag. When the 2 bottles meet, they clink, and she remembers the way they once shared a glass together. Te llevo una, she says to her memory, and drapes the straps of the satchel over her shoulder. The clock crows 3, and she shivers from sadness. Jesus was supposed to die, she says to herself. Dying was his purpose, not yours. With her satchel at her hip and her heart leading the way, she walks into the living room, kisses every one of her children and grandchildren on their foreheads as they silently sleep on their beds and the floor. None of them feel her kisses, and when they awaken, only the youngest of her granddaughters will ask for her abuela. She's walking up an empty street. She's waiting at a lonely bus stop. She's riding on a hollow bus. She's walking down a lifeless dirt road, 10 miles of emptiness, 25 years of terror. This is love. This is the picture that it leaves behind. She remembers him every step of the way, up every street, at every bus stop, on every bus, down every dirt road. I'll never forget you, she says to her memory, and I'll never stop coming to be with you. She's close now and can see the sun beginning to show itself on the other side of the mountain. Behind her, her footprints mark her journey. She passed through here, they say, on her way to be with her beloved. But this is a journey that no one will ever value, an event in history that one day will never have happened. This is the march of the sorrowful, the march of the ones who can't free themselves from the dead. My lonely widow, my lonely black heart, why do you come to the grave? Why do you bring life to the dead? Turn round and go whence you came. Turn round and go away. But on this December 1st, this dead man was born. On this December 1st, many, many years ago. So on this day, she comes to his grave to cry and to bring life to his memory. She's standing at the gates, peering through its decaying bars at the valley of death. She's cold and tired. The sun is gaining strength, but it's still no match against the winter morning that envelops her world. ¿Dónde estás, Pedro? Where are you? Ábreme aquí. Please open the gates. She yells out to the gatekeeper. And from the other side of the adobe wall adjacent to the gate, a voice responds. ¿Eres tú la viuda del 1 de diciembre? Is it you, the widow of December 1st? Sí, yo soy. Ábreme, por favor. Ya voy, ya voy. Pedro's old and crippled, drags his right leg when he walks as if pulling an iron anchor. He's the keeper of graves at the cemetery, and he calls it his home. Yo vivo con los muertos. I live with the dead, he says. And every morning before opening the gates to the living, he recites a dozen Our Fathers and Hail Marys in front of his altar of saints for his muertitos, as he likes to call them, while drinking a pajarete, a mixture of warm cow's milk, chocolate, and tequila. This is what he was doing on the other side of the wall when he heard the widow's voice. Aquí estoy, I'm here, he says to the widow while searching his pockets for his keys. Es que estaba rezándole a los santitos para que cuiden a mis muertitos. I was praying to the saints that they take care of my dead ones. Pues ojalá y lo escuchen, Don Pedro. I hope that they listen to you. Don Pedro, the widow tells him, watching him insert the key into the lock. Que frío, she adds, folding her arms. Sí, tremendo. The two shiver at the same time, and he offers her a drink from his pajarete, but she refuses, telling him that she brought something to drink of her own. No, gracias. Yo aquí traigo que tomar. I brought something to drink for myself. And bowing to her the way subjects bow to their queen, he says to her, pues pásele, mi borrachita. Pásele que allá la espera su muertito. She's on her knees, weeping before a weathered and crooked white cross with the name of her beloved written across it. Barely noticeable now, erased by the elements. She has one hand on top of it and the other at her side over her satchel, pressing it against her body. Her head is lowered and her tears sadly fall to the earth. Nothing's changed here. The scene remains as always. 1,000 sad stories with 1,000 sad endings, but hers is the only one worth 1,000 tears. She'll sing it and no one will hear. Te amo, I love you. Why did you go, my beloved? And why didn't you take me with you? There is something terrible about your hands that I miss. The way they would make me feel alive when they crashed with my flesh. The way they pounded my breasts. The way they beat my spirit. Why don't you scream? Why don't you yell my name? I love you so much less when you are silent. Awake, my beloved. Awake, thine fury. She reaches inside her satchel and brings out one of the caguamas. Mira lo que te traje. Look what I brought you, she says, to the cross. Vamos a tomar, mi amor, porque es tu cumpleaños. We're going to drink, my love, because it's your birthday. 1 drink, 2 drinks, 3 drinks, 4 drinks, 5 drinks. The tears turn to laughter. Vicente Fernandez sings in her head and she cries out to the cross with a smile on her face. El Rey, you will always be my king. 3/4 through the bottle, she pours the rest onto the dirt and watches as it bubbles up and seeps into the ground. Para ti, she says. She reaches into her satchel for the second caguama, and just as soon as she pops it open, she puts it to her lips and begins to drink. There's a shouting match inside of her now, and she's weeping again and laughing. And soon she'll be curled up on the dirt, tasting its grains and shivering from the cold. Next to her, 2 caguamas will lay sadly spent like neglected children. This is love, this is sorrow, this is misery. So that's my coquis and what's left of her beloved. And I'm gonna close just with a little bit of myself. Upon reading this book, you'll come to the realization that more than anything, it's about alcoholism and the horrors that come with that, the violence, the chaos, the pain, the sorrow, the suffering, everything that comes with having an alcoholic in the family, and more so when it's your father, when it's the patriarch of the family. In addition to that, what I attempt to do with the book is to express how even with the distance between us, or even through the absence of my father or the father, the son can somehow turn out to be very similar to the father. And I attempt to do that because I feel that I'm a lot like my father in many ways. And in one of those ways is because of my own alcoholism. I've been an alcoholic for about the past 20 years. So I address that in the book as well. And towards the end of it, I write the following. I am 2 people. I am the man who is the smart college professor who wears a tie and inspires his students, who by his mere presence shows them that they too can aspire to complete their degrees and live out their career goals. I am the man who gives inspirational talks about redemption and overcoming obstacles to large groups of young people at different college campuses and other institutions. I am the man who was pardoned by an immigration judge and allowed to remain in the United States. I am the man who paints, the man who writes. I am the man who is always smiling and seems to be unaffected by stress or even sorrow. I am the man who can tell you 1,000 stories and make you fall in love with him. I am the man who can love you back with everything that he has. I am the man who cries during sad movies and cries even more when reading sad books. I am the man who is sensitive and caring. I am the man who is a good friend. I am the man whose friends and family members ask to be their best man or the godfather of their child. I am the man who is a brother, a nephew, a grandson, a cousin, And most importantly, I am the man who is the son of his mother. But if I am that man, then I am also this man. I am the man who rolls up to the bar, has 4 double shots of whiskey within a couple of hours, and then begins to slur his language. I am the drunk man. I am the drunk man at the bar who spills food all over his shirt because he has no sense of being. I am the drunk man who falls off his wheelchair in the street at midnight and has to be helped up by a total stranger. I am the drunk man who wakes up on the kitchen floor with piss all over his pants. I am the drunk man who gets a DUI after his pardon and is afraid to return to Mexico to visit his brothers because of it. I am the drunk man who lost his wife because he couldn't stop drinking and betraying her love. I am the drunk man who has lost every woman he has ever loved because he loved drinking even more. I am the drunk man who drinks to not feel alone. I am the drunk man who drinks to not feel at all. I am the drunk man who drinks because he's ashamed and then drinks to mask that shame. I am the drunk man who is always dying, dying, dying. I am the drunk man who is the son of his father. I am the drunk man. Now, and with that, but on a happy note, I've been sober for the past month and 2 days, and I plan on staying sober. So thank you, everybody. Thank you. I don't know what else to say.
Oh man, that's cool. I'm glad you ended with that that section too. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, that's a hard section to read too, let me tell you.
Is that, have you read that before?
I read it, well, I read it on
Public?
on December 7th, the day the book dropped. So at the book launch, yeah, I read it there. And it was so hard because it was like, you know, over 100 people in the venue, and it's just so.
That's a lot. Why did I guess just jump into it. So why did you decide to read it, like, I guess tonight, but also like at that,
Well,
like that premiere, you know?
Well, yeah, and both of those are like opposing like reasons. So I decided to read it tonight because like I'm sober, like I've been sober for a month and I'm so fucking happy to be sober, yo. Like I haven't been sober this long in 20 years, like literally. And you know, in the past couple of years, especially through COVID, my alcoholism had just gotten worse, to the point that, you know, I could have probably killed myself at some point. So that's why I wanted to read it tonight, because I've been sober for 30 days and I'm so happy. Like I'm happy. Like I thought for a long time I was thinking that's going to be impossible. I would tell myself it's impossible. I just can't do it. And here I am doing it. So I'm happy. That's why I did it. Now, the reason I read it on the day of the book launch, I don't know why. It was just, I just thought I should. But the irony there was that I was drunk already by the time I got to that part, which was not conducive for anything. So I don't know. I guess this is a way of just like cleaning that up a little bit. But it's tough to read nonetheless, because it's like I'm putting myself out there. So
yeah. No, I think I mean that's like, you know, like Obed and I had talked earlier today, and we talked about a lot of stuff, but like I was telling him that I felt like this section was particularly like moving and like necessary and perfect where it came in the book. And I guess I was kind of curious, like what the fear is, or what the fears are when, you know, you have an alcoholic parent, and sometimes like it gets twisted. Most times it gets twisted, like that the fear is about them or them, but then, you know, and myself also having an alcoholic parent and also being an alcoholic myself, like feel like I'm just scared that's what's going to happen to me, you know? I'm like, everything, I look like her, I do like this, I do everything else like her, like this thing too. And I think
Yeah,
part of, go ahead.
no, those are very real fears, you know. And I'm 43 now, and my dad died when he was 48, so that's only like 5 years from now. So, you know, again, I in these past couple of years, my drinking just increased. I was drinking heavily on a daily basis. So, you know, this past month when I decided to stop, it was really because two things. I knew that I would probably die like my father at a very young age if I continued to do it. And number two, because how could I write a fucking book about alcoholism and 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 death and all the horrors that come with it and continue to drink? It just didn't jive with me. And I felt like in a way I was doing a disservice to the people that would read my book. You know, as honest as it is, I just felt that I would be cheating them out of something. So I decided to stop, man, because I just, like you said, I don't want to end up like my parent. Like my mom, yes, because my mom's fantastic. She's not an alcoholic, very brilliant. But like my father, you know?
There's like this, I guess, do you feel like any part of that is because of is that aligned with the book's publication? Because have you gone sober before, or?
I went sober once when I got a DUI about 10 years ago. And that was only for like a couple of weeks, just to like play it off for the judge. To be like, look, judge, I'm sober, but I really wasn't. But yeah, this is like in about 20 years, the longest I've been sober.
How much do you think that it doesn't have anything to do with the book coming out?
Yeah, exactly. Just as I said, you know, how can someone write a book like this with the content that it has, and you know, its main point being about the horrors of alcoholism and continue to drink. I just couldn't do that.
I feel like I was talking to someone earlier too, and I was saying like, or not saying, but I was thinking about how like once you confront and like really get through like your writing, like when your book comes out or whatever that content is that you're probably not anywhere else gonna really admit to. You know, it's like once that book comes out, I feel like I can't pretend I don't know what I know now, you know. And like, it's not that I still do sometimes, but but you know, I know that I'm just faking it the whole time. And like I think that's part of like kind of a devastating part about writing for me as a poet. Either poems and folks will sometimes pretend, or not pretend, but ask, you know, oh, that's the speaker, and I'm like, it's me. It's actually me. And but I can't go back. Like I can't, like the poems changed me. And so I imagine this being a memoir, that it might have changed you, not in just like, you know, the insight you've had about your alcoholism, but other things, probably about your family, about yourself, about love, and all those types of things. Do you feel like there's anything else you hella learned?
Yeah, well, what I learned. Did you learn anything from this writing process? Are you a better person or what? Yeah, well, you know what? I think I am a better person. Well, number one, you know, carrying my father's death and all of his sins and feeling responsible in one way or another. Like in writing the book, I was able to let that go. So in a very strange way, you know, finishing this book was also a way of me just like closing that chapter with my father. Whatever animosity I held towards him, whatever anger I felt towards him, whatever I could never forgive him for, And I'm talking about, like, the horrible things he did to my mother, the horrible things he did to his wife, to my brothers and sisters. Like, in writing this book, I was able to let that go, man. All that bitterness, all that anger, just let it go. And I was able to, even though I haven't said it out loud, like, to forgive my father. I was able to forgive him. He's a human being just like everybody else, and he had his own traumas that came from dark places, right? And the people that caused him trauma were people that themselves were traumatized, right? It's a lineage, it's a cycle that occurs. And when it deals with alcoholism, I mean, it's evident in all factions of society, whether you're rich, you're poor, whether you're black, you're white, orange, whatever race and nationality you may be. This is something that crosses all of those lines and all of those borders. So yeah, absolutely. I feel like I'm a better person after having written this book, and that I've learned a lot about different things that people go through and have to carry on a daily basis.
That's such a trip, because for me, I feel like I thought, like, oh, I'm gonna write this book and heal, right? I'm gonna write this book and forgive everybody. They're gonna call me. My dad's gonna be like, I'm sorry. My brother's gonna tell me sorry. And then, like, I feel like for me, I had the opposite experience, where instead of feeling relieved or anything, I felt like a vast underworld had been opened. and it was really devastating. And I think after I just had a really depressing experience, and I talked to another writer, and I was like, dude, did you have this experience? Did you? And other people were like, yeah, dude, like, sucks. It's like, you go into the abyss. And this poet, Muriel Lung, was like, yeah, she's like, you think you're going to heal, but really you're just like opening the wound. And every book, you're going to open it like more and more and more and more and more. And I was like, fuck, I don't want to write anymore.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean,
but I felt like, yeah. And I think I can't, I don't know what literature will do for me as a person, in my family, but I do feel like a little bit at a time, I'm able to like have compassion for, in this case, like my mom, and also for me, and feeling and like trying to learn that, like, my mom doesn't love alcohol more than she loves me. She's sick, And there's something you talk about in the book where you say, there's almost like a sense of maybe a little bit of guilt. You tell me where you feel kind of guilty for not being able to reciprocate the unconditional love that your father has for you.
That's a difficult question, because hell, I tried to murder my father, and all of that comes out in the book. And there were moments where I just wanted to cause him great bodily harm, just so that he could know and feel what we felt or felt as his children. That was the way of me reciprocating that love, that unconditional love. And I say that jokingly, but I think at the end of the day, I still had unconditional love for my father. I mean, he was my father. And throughout the whole book, you see that I fluctuate, right? I present you, in one of the excerpts that I just read, I allude to the fishes and the sodas. I mean, my father used to take us fishing, and we'd spend hours at the lake fishing and just having a wonderful time and doing things that a father and son should do. But then that is also contrasted with later on when I became an adult, and he tried to cause me harm, physical harm, and he did so towards my brothers, and I try to do the same back to him. So it's complicated in the sense that how can you love unconditionally the person who causes you so much harm and pain?
Mhm.
But that's all part of being human, you know, because none of us can be perfect as much as we want our parents to be perfect.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, and I just want to address, there's somebody in the chat that said his name is Greg Bashar, I think it's pronounced, but he said it's the reader that gets healed by the writer's suffering. And I like that, you know, because
Mhm.
you know, I was telling you earlier that the best thing that's come out of this book for me has been receiving messages from like strangers. Like they'll DM me my Instagram or some shit, and they'll have a picture of my book and they'll write you know, a small comment, a short comment that says something along the lines like, you know, I come from a family of alcoholics and this book has helped me put in perspective or given me another perspective about these people, or it's helped me heal, right?
Mhm.
So to me, like that's the most rewarding part. And I think that helps me heal too.
Mhm.
Like that I'm able to help somebody else, and to hear that I'm helping those people from their own mouths helps me
Mhm.
and gives me the strength to
Mhm.
want to continue to be sober
Mhm.
and not be that alcoholic that causes that harm.
Mhm.
It's my way of doing good and giving back.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's your service.
My service, yo. Yeah.
You know, and then I guess thinking about that too, because I mean, I know I've through reading some interviews with you that how the book came to be picked up, but between the writing process and the publication process, and we talked a little about this earlier, like were there any I guess complications or between taking the writing and the content and getting it to a publisher or press out accepted what, you know, it for what it was, everything included, the alcoholism, the violence? Was there any kind of complications, and was there any, I guess, questions that you kind of asked yourself at that time? Because I'm guessing that, you know, I don't know. I know that the industry is sometimes doesn't resonate with stories from people that look like us, and so I'm curious if there's anything.
Like us, how? Like cara de tortillas and shit? Like is that cara de
Exactly.
nopales? Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. You know, I didn't come across any of those types of barriers. Like the FSG was the first publisher I sent it to, and they bought the book within a couple of weeks.
Cool.
You know, the Hector Tobar, who's a good friend of mine, he told me that they probably wouldn't reach out to me for like, you know, a few months.
Mhm.
But they called me back in like a couple of weeks, and even he was surprised. He's like, "Damn, bro!" Like they, and not only that, at the time it was Danny Vasquez, who has now gone on to another imprint, his own imprint. But he told me, "Hey, listen, we don't only want to buy this book, but we want to buy a second book because we understand you're working on a second." And they hadn't even read the second one. And I told them, you want to buy that one too, but you haven't even read it. They're like, well, if it's anything like this one, I mean, we'd like to have it. And I said, well, fuck it, send the contract, tell me what to sign, I got you, right? And show me the paycheck. What does that look like? So that was my initial reception, you know, to the publishing world, and it's been pretty smooth throughout, with the exception of like the Spanish, and you heard some Spanish in my book, and it's sprinkled throughout the entire text. But that was like the only challenge where I was surprised that my editor called me and he's like, yo, we can't find a Spanish editor. Like the people that they had on deck, like they were all busy with other books or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how many it was. It's probably like one or two. I don't know. I'm making that up. Right?
That one fool is busy.
Yeah, but I'm thinking in my head, like, fuck, you guys are a huge publishing house. Like, you should have, like, you know, a phone call away. Like, I need a Spanish editor, like, ASAP. But they didn't have that. So it was up to me. And, you know, my editors, a dope ass person. He's like, yo, if you know somebody that can edit Spanish, just let us know. We'll pay them. And so I did. I got my friend Socorro, who teaches at Cal State LA, and she said she was willing to do it, and she did it, and they cut her a check, and everybody was happy. But yeah, that was the only surprise, that such a big publishing house and with a lot of Latino writers out there, because I've read tons of books with Spanish sprinkled in them, So that was a bit of a surprise to me. So. But other than that, it's been pretty cool, man. Pretty cool.
Well, I'm glad to hear. I'm glad to hear that. But also, surprised too at that little part, because it just doesn't make sense. Makes no sense, but okay. I think we have a couple more minutes, and if anybody has a question that they might want to ask, feel free to drop it in the chat. We will do our best to answer it if you do, and if you don't, that's cool too.
Just before, any questions? There's a comment here too by Oksana Mauricio, and she says, as you in your sobriety journey, you're lifted by our community. The more you share your story with raw and authenticity, like I've gotten that so much that people appreciate the rawness in which I write, in the authenticity, because that was a concern to me. I was thinking like, nah, man, my shit is too raw. I think the publishers are going to be scared to publish something like this, right? And I curse a lot and shit like that, and that pops up in the book too. So I thought that would be a concern, but it's been the opposite. Like a lot of the feedback that I get, good feedback, that's one of the things that they appreciate, the honesty. It's like, dude, this is like so raw, and I love that, right? That you're so honest, and you tell these things about yourself, not only about like your family, but about yourself. So that's one thing that I was kind of skeptical about, but I know no other way to write. Like if I'm going to write something, I'm going to tell it to you like the way I know how, which is fucking just bluntly and out there. So, and I think people are hungry for that, because we tend to sanitize a lot of shit. We tend to, like, especially nowadays, we tend to censor ourselves.
Okay.
Wink, wink.
Well, it's something else that I'm thinking about too, is like when you're teaching, right? I feel like just to think about like, and you're teaching students and they want to know, like they want to change their work. They try to make it more like luxurious. So they try to use like all these words. They try to come at it from all these different angles. I'm like, dude, just stop lying. Like, just stop lying. And you can get past 5 drafts of craft work if you just come at it, like a fully human, not giving a fuck. And then you can get into like the tuning up, but I think it's good to hear that from someone like you who has their book just debuted, to know like that's kind of the shit that got you to it, I want to go ahead and pick up from Melinda's question. Melinda says she's curious how you see the relationship between intergenerational trauma and alcoholism addiction. How do they play off or fuel each other in your view?
They play off each other for sure. Like I said, this book in a way was an experiment in to express how even the separation of a father and son can lead to the son being so much like the father, right? Because my father and I never really lived together. He and my mom divorced when I was 4 or 5, and he went to live in Mexico, and I stayed here in the United States with my mom. But my father, one of the main reasons my mom came to the United States was to escape his rage, his beatings, because he would beat her often. As a little kid, there were times when I'd see her with sunglasses inside the house, and I didn't understand why. It was because she had black eyes. He had punched her in the face. but he left when I was 4 or 5. And after that, we didn't have a real close relationship, even though I would go visit him during every summer. But I wanted to show how even, with me being in the United States and him being in Mexico, I could become so much like him. So his absence was a presence in a way, right? Through some genetic value or something, like I was like him. And I really wish I wasn't, because I was like him in many of the bad ways. Although one of the things that my father did give me that was a gift was my ability to be artistic, to draw, to paint. I mean, behind me, that's one of my paintings, right? And my father had been a painter. He had been an artist, but because he preferred to drink, he gave up on his talent and just never pursued it the way I'm attempting to pursue it now. Yeah. So the trauma is very real. It's very intergenerational. And unless we check it, right? Unless somebody within that cycle decides to like fully stop, it's always going to continue. It's always going to continue. And like I said, my father was the way he was because somebody, my grandpa, was the way, was that same way to him. And maybe my great grandpa was the same way to my grandpa. Yeah.
Well, that's what I would have said. Yeah, I echo that. I echo exactly. It's the same thing. It's just like the alcoholism is a compounding of the pain that would have already happened, like in my case, like with my mom, she was like severely abused. And whether she made the choice to drink or not, I would have inherited some violence, some way, I already carry it. I already try to make up for it. I already try to love her better, and sometimes I even catch myself trying to like punish my grandma, like in
Don't
these
do
ways,
that. Can't punish grandma.
Hey, you don't know her, but
You're right.
Yeah, but I think it's like even just Obed, like just making the choice to be sober or try to be sober or be at least be conscious of sobriety as an option, like is damn, like that's the intervention, right? That's the thing you can do. Like even if you can't change the past, but you can make a different choice,
That's a fact.
Well, I think that is probably a good place for us to end. So, Obed, thank you. Thanks for reading. Thanks for being so honest. Thank you to Beyond Baroque. Thank you to everybody here for hosting. Please see the chat. Please buy Obed's memoir. It's available. And please support
Sarah's,
Beyond
by Sarah's
Baroque.
book, poetry. Absolutely. And just real quick, because there's a kid, or I don't know if it's a kid, because I always think of my student, but Ivan S talks about, asks about the title itself, why about the Pope. It's explained in the book, and I usually read that part, but because of time, I didn't read that, but it's all explained in the text as to why my father, the Pope. Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful.
But thank you, Sarah. It was awesome. Thank you, audience. Thank you, Beyond Baroque, for having us. Fantastic. Next time we'll do it live. We're doing it live.
So we'll see you. We'll see you all Beyond Baroque. Or you can maybe follow Obed too on Instagram and see what other events he's got going on too, and see what develops out of this memoir too.
Right.
All right, y'all. Have a good night. Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Night.